quorum has been established. Approval of the minutes, council. We have in our packets the minutes of the regular city council meeting and the special city council meeting of August 16th and the workshop on August 6th. Any additions or corrections to the minutes of that meeting, or both those meetings? Seeing none, they stand approved. Council items to be considered. Is there any additional council items to be considered? Okay, we'll go to consent agenda. Council, what's your wish? Councilmember Brox makes a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Fulch. That motion is now before the body. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have awarding of contracts, a public hearing. Tonight, council, we have a public hearing in relation to the vacation of easement at Wallen 17th Edition. John, welcome to the meeting. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. What we have tonight is a public hearing to consider a vacation of easement in Wallen 17th Edition. Shown in your maps here is a 20-foot easement that was platted between future Brandlewood Court, which is here, and other areas of Wallen Edition south of Greystone Road. The reason for the vacation of easement is to accommodate a new lot lie-up that would be proposed as part of the Wallen 18th Edition. That would be the Villa Home site that's currently going through Planning Commission review. Now, with this, we have a public hearing. What we're asking is to hold the public hearing tonight and to delay action until the preliminary and final plat returns to the City Council. So tonight, the only action would be to hold the public hearing. When we take a look at the need for the drainage and utility easement with the proposed layout of the Wallen 18th Edition with the smaller Villa Home lots, this easement is no longer necessary. So I could stand for any questions, or you may open the public hearing. Thank you.
Hey, John, thank you for presenting that to the council and to the public. I'm going to open up the public hearing at this time. Anyone here who would like to speak to this particular issue on the vacation of easement, Wallen 17th Edition? Anyone here would like to speak to that particular issue? Okay, sir, please come to the podium. Give us your name and address. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Todd Rapp. I'm legal counsel for many years for the Wallen Partnership. I just want to correct one thing. The vacation of the easement from the 16th edition, not the 17th edition.
Yeah, I've got it written Wallen 17th here.
And it's the 16th.
Okay.
It was created to provide a short length of storm sewer between lots pursuant to a grading plan originally approved preliminarily with the preliminary plat of the Wallen subdivision as a whole 16, 17 years ago. With the proposed 18th edition, there will be a storm sewer in the general location. It's just going to be moved down a couple of lots. So this one is rendered, if there is approval of the 18th edition, totally unimportant, then a small storm sewer will be installed as part of that 18th edition to provide the necessary drainage from the backyards of those lots in this cul-de-sac. So it's basically eliminate this one, pave the way for the creation of another one with the 18th edition. Same difference, same water coming back. Okay. That's all I have to add.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. John, any comment on that?
Sure. I trust Mr. Rapp is correct on that one. We'll verify that prior to the resolution coming forward, so we have the correct legal description on it.
Okay, we'll check that out before we have final.
Absolutely.
Since we're not approving anything tonight, we have a lot of time to look into that. Okay. Okay. Let's see, is there any other discussion? Okay, anyone else wish to testify? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council, we will move on to the next item. No action is needed at this time. We're going to go to Public Works, Community Development. Council, we have before us a resolution to consider a site plan, special use permit, and variance for Vermilion Shores Apartment. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council member. As the mayor pointed out, we have 3 actions related to a proposal to build a 60-unit apartment building located at the southeast corner of County Road 47 and 31st Street. You can see it's right across the street here from an existing 36-unit apartment building that was built about 10 years ago, and part of a plan for apartment buildings that dates back to, I think, the late 1990s, maybe earlier than that. The plat itself for the subdivision was approved in 2002, was laid out for up to 72 apartment units on the site. They're coming forward with a proposal for 60 units. The applicant is WAI Continuum, and the property owner is Seaward Construction Company. So there are three actions that are necessary to accommodate the proposal. One of them is a variance to the maximum height provision in the Shoreland Overlay District. Now, let me explain what that is. Within 300 feet of the Vermilion River, as shown here, there are certain regulations that we have in ordinance relating to shoreland. And anything that's within 300 feet of the Vermilion River, which is about half the site, falls within those regulations. The building itself falls here, so part of that's within there. The majority of the site back here is open space, stormwater ponding. As you can see faintly here, this stormwater basin exists with the outlet structures that were constructed, I believe, in 2002. So with the Shoreland District, there's two actions that are necessary. Number one is there is a maximum height requirement for buildings within that district of 35 feet. The applicant is proposing a structure that is just under 60 feet in height, similar to the height of the apartment building that is across the road from this site. In taking a look at the variance provisions for this, we are recommending approval of the variance based upon a couple of items. Number one, that this development here in its planning stages predates the adoption of the Shoreland Ordinance, and two, that the approval for 72 units, if it was placed in the property, would further spread the development out and create more impervious surface than what is seen today, and that the views from the Vermilion River would not be compromised with this development. So we are recommending approval, as well as the Planning Commission, with that. Second is a special use permit for multiple family dwellings in the Shoreland District. Frankly, this is kind of an odd provision. I don't know why that's in there, but we are recommending approval of the special use permit. It complies with the underlying R3 zoning district, and part of what we call our planned residential development, which is that larger master plan of the Riverwood development that dates back some time. The third item would be the site plan for the 60-unit apartment building. All of these items were proposed and were presented to the Planning Commission back on August 13th. The Commission did vote 6-0 to recommend approval of all those actions. During the public hearing, we did have one resident speak with concerns about traffic at 31st Street and County Road 47, and how this apartment complex may add to that issue. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the actions as you see tonight here. And so when we take a look at the building itself, this is how the site plan lays out. It's a kind of a 3-story apartment for the most part, 2 stories on the end, first level parking. So you basically have parking on the main level, then 2 to 3 stories of apartment buildings above that, and with some surface parking and access out to 31st Street. The parking, the landscaping meets our requirements for the code. When you take a look at the architecturals of the building itself, you can see here is the parking on the main floor with the building space above it, variety of materials, nice looking building. We take a look at our architectural requirements on there. We have certain material standard requirements. They were a little short on one of the elevations, but much above that on other elevations. So with an averaging out of that, we're supportive of the application on the architectural standards as it moves forward here. And another view of the building, and that's what I have for the approval. With this, I do caution the council that we do have 3 actions, distinct actions on this one, with 3 resolutions. Now, 2 of the actions, the variance request and the special use permit, do require 6 of 7 votes. So with Councilmember Balsonic absent, it would need to be a unanimous vote on the special use permit and the variance items. The site plan item is a simple majority. And we do have representatives here from the development team if you have any questions for them, and I can stand for any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for that presentation. Appreciate that. Council, let's go with the variance first. Obviously, I think if we can't pass a variance or can't pass a special use permit, the site plan's not going to do us any good. So let's have before us the variance. This is the request, the variance for the height John, was that a DNR? That's a DNR requirement, wasn't it?
It is. The shoreline ordinance is a template ordinance that was drafted by the DNR, and cities are obligated to adopt it. We have the regulatory control over it, but they ultimately were the drafters of it. We did have notification of DNR on these issues. They took no issue with the variance request or the special use permit request.
Thank you, John. Just a matter of, okay, Councilmember Brock?
Thank you, John, for the information. I have a question just about the justification for the height requirement. Do you know what the underlying concern was behind the shoreline, ordinance? The height requirement, what is the underlying justification for that limit?
I think the underlying justification would be in some of the more scenic river areas that you wanted to limit building height below the tree line. And so you wouldn't have buildings that are going way above tree lines, for example, in some of the higher bluff areas along the Mississippi River. That would be what I would think the justification would be for it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lund?
Thank you, Rob. So if you wouldn't mind going back to the layout, the topographical, note where the ordinance comes into play?
Mhm.
Thanks. That yellow line is your 350, right?
Correct.
Is there any reason why the developer isn't just flipping the building to go along with the curvature of that? I mean, it looks like if they flipped it 180 degrees, there wouldn't even be this discussion, so.
Sure. If they were to flip the development, I suppose that could be a possibility here. It would add more impervious surface into the into the shoreland district area, I think, more than what the building would be. So that may be problematic on that aspect of it. I think it would place the building closer to 31st Street. So it would look much more massive at that standpoint and maybe out of character for the neighborhood.
Councilmember Vaughn?
Thank you. John, going back to this ordinance, is there any other property or any potential property that's going to run into the same request for this variance?
Councilmember, in this subdivision here, there would not be. We have this property and I think 4 or 5 other properties as you go south and east along 31st Street that were designated for apartments. Now, this is the only property, I believe, that falls within that 300-foot setback from the Vermilion River, so it would not have that. The only other areas where this has come into play is really within our downtown, but we have some downtown exemptions for that. So I don't think it's going to come up too often.
Okay. Just worried about precedence.
Councilmember?
Thank you.
Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, John. I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties with the Wi-Fi connection, so we can't pull up the diagrams in front of us. But I was curious about then the amount of impervious surface that we will have, generated. And I quickly looking at the diagram, it didn't seem to me that there was any mitigation that was going to be installed to deal with the rainwater runoff, from the impervious surface. And so what more could be done so that, all that water isn't just coming off the rooftops and parking lots and going straight into the river? I mean, couldn't, like rain gardens be created, between the shoreline and then the apartment complex there? It looked like perhaps there was some greenery and a couple of trees or something to that effect. But, sure. I mean, I hate to keep making these exceptions for, the developments that are coming along the Vermilion River and not asking for there to be some kind of rainwater, mitigation.
Okay. And Councilmember, we have an existing stormwater basin, which is shown here. So the way that the site is designed, all surface stormwater would be pre-treated in this basin and potentially other basins prior to discharge into the Vermilion River. So you would not have a situation where you're having water directly go into the river itself. We do have a provision under the Shoreline Code that caps impervious surface coverage within that 300-foot boundary at, I think, 25%. Right now, they're, I think, a little over 20%, and so they don't reach that threshold of being too high on impervious surface that would trigger other mitigation that the ordinance would require.
So you do feel that this plan is substantial enough to be able to take care of the rainwater, the basin there. When you flip it to, with the construction, it doesn't look like that there's very much space between the actual construction and the river, that one.
Okay. Yeah, I think what this shows here is the grading line limit, excuse me. So this basin area was graded out, I think, in 2002 with the rest of the development. And so that it was designed to carry the stormwater for this property and maybe other properties within the area. And so, yeah, it's a little bit deceiving that it showed right here that this could be right next to the river.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming.
Okay, yeah, no, this line that I'm showing here would be probably right about here.
Oh, okay.
So you've got the rest of the property here that they own, the trail, and then other property in between that to the river.
Okay, thank you, John.
Sure.
Okay, council, we have the variance before us. Councilmember Liefeld?
Just real quick, thanks, Your Honor. John, the existing building across the street, is that the same height?
It is.
So
Is
this
that
will be
correct,
of the
Todd?
same height as the previous building? Thank you.
Okay, council, we have the variance before us. Councilmember Liefeld, was that a motion? Motion to approve is seconded by Councilmember Brox. Any additional discussion to the motion on the variance? Caution, council, this needs to be a unanimous vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have the special use permit. John, just real quickly, the special use permit again?
Sure, special use permit. Within the shoreland district, there's a special use permit required for any multiple family residential dwelling over 5 units. And so that's what we have before us.
Thank you, council. A motion on that? Moved by Councilmember Vaughn to approve, seconded by Councilmember Liefeld. The special use permit, any further discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next is the site plan. We have the site plan before the council. Discussion to the site plan. Any more discussion on the site plan? Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sorry, again, I don't have the site plan in front of me. I was just curious, I'm not,
You can put that back up here for you.
thank you. I don't see any area on there for a playground or any areas for children, and I haven't walked that neighborhood recently, and so I can't remember, but I don't recall that there is a playground near it. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. The nearest one, Riverwood Park, is probably a couple blocks away from there. When we did a plat in 2002, there was a discussion with the park board and the city council as to the method of park dedication at that point. And what the decision was to have cash in lieu of land dedicated paid for the development. So they've previously satisfied their park dedication requirements on this site.
Oh, they have, okay. Okay, all right.
I might add too that the trail that runs right across the street from this development and right in front of the existing apartment building connects with another trail that goes southwest, and it comes out to I can't remember what court, but it goes straight to the park. So they have a trail access that goes right to the park from there.
Okay, great.
It goes to Riverwood Park.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any further discussion on the site plan, council? Okay. Motion approved by Councilmember Liefeld, seconded by Councilmember Brox. Motion is before the body. Is there any further discussion to the motion? Okay. I'm very supportive of this project. We need this type of housing in Hastings. We need more of it. And I'm very pleased to the developers. I like the looks of it. I like the way the existing building looks great now, and it's always been well kept. And this was a tremendous asset to the city. And I'm pleased that it's before us. One of the things, though, I will say that I was disappointed about is reading a letter a couple of weeks ago that suggested that the city was not doing some due diligence with the developer. I do not feel that that was fair, and there are pre-meetings with developers and city staff, and I read that with some concern. With my investigations, I think that the city is doing a good job in developing, working with developers and finding some issues. So I just wanted to put people on notice in the next few months, at least as long as I'm here, that I'm going to be looking for, you know, statements like that that are kind of, in my opinion, cheap political shots to advance either an issue or a candidate. And I'm not going to stand for it. And I think the city did an outstanding job working on this out. So with that, Council, I urge you to support this project. Todd, would you like to make a statement?
I'm Todd Seward, the owner of the development here.
Welcome to the meeting, Todd. Glad to have here.
Thank you, good to see you all. But I appreciate your candor, Mayor Hicks. But what I liked about the outcome of that article was it created communication, and it created an open dialogue. And I appreciate you, Melanie, for reaching out to me as well to open up that dialogue, so then maybe things can go a little bit smoother and I can understand the system of the city a little bit better, and not have these kind of issues. In my whole career developing in Hastings, I don't know what it has been or why it's been me or not, but there's always been some kind of difficulty, and I can't put my finger on exactly why it seems to be difficult here. But when you work in other municipalities like we do, mainly Red Wing, those issues aren't as prevalent. So what I commented on was truth, but yet I appreciate the outcome, because now there is dialogue, and hopefully these things will smooth themselves out in the long run. So I do feel like we're an asset to this community, and we're building nice properties here, and I do like working with the city. It's just sometimes it's a little bit difficult. So that's my comment. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. I certainly disagree with that, but you have your right to say it. I've had a lot of meetings with folks, and there are problems and issues with some developers at times. But in this particular case, there was a pre-meeting that could have taken place. A lot of the issues could have been discussed, and prior to that, and a lot of the things. You know, sometimes I get asked by people, "Why can't you just approve things and then we'll work out the details later?" Well, that's not how you do business. The problem with that is if you say, "Yeah, we like this photometric plan," and we say, "Well, we don't know exactly what the photometrics are going to be on a parking lot," and we say, "We approve," okay, and then later on somebody puts in a photometric that's too bright, we say, "Well, the city approved it," you know. So I think that you know, I appreciate your comments. There's always good room for communication, but you know, when I read that at home, I certainly took a different view of that. Now, I understand there are issues between developers and cities everywhere. It's just not Hastings. Developers and cities always have to work together to make things work. Hastings is not unique to that. And I'm quite proud, because I have probably, for every one complaint, I probably got 10 data boys from people that said, "We appreciate working with the city of Hastings." And I want that message out there too. So, but we have before us a very good project, and I like this project, and I'm glad it's going forward. Any other discussion? Councilmember Brox.
I think we have a great need for housing in the city of Hastings, and I think all of the people that are up here are aware of that. We have a lot of families that want to move here and are looking for properties and want to have properties available to them. So all of us we know that that's a need, and we see that need, and I think we do want to work with people. I think the thing that I think about a lot is that I have a lot of these conversations with business owners in Hastings who say things that are very generalized to me about the city and the processes. And my message is, please tell me what specific things you're talking about so that we can make changes. Because if I don't know what they are as a council member, then I can't do anything to change them. So I would just advise, you know, we can take the criticism, we can take the feedback. We just need really specific descriptions of what it is that is standing in your way, because I hear the generalized feedback, and then when I try to drill into that conversation a bit more and understand the specifics, nobody gives me the specifics. And that's really hard to change a process if you don't know what it is that you're supposed to change. So I would just encourage the dialogue and more feedback and more conversations, because I think all of us up here are open to that, to making changes. We just need to know what those are.
Okay, we have a motion before the body. Is there any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Okay, next we have a resolution of preliminary and final plat, South Pines 9. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Shown on the screen here is the outline for South Pines 9, which is a 25-lot single-family subdivision located on Sandpiper Circle between the current edge of Sandpiper Circle and Tuttle Drive, being proposed by Greg J. Holmes. The history of the site, this was done as part of a larger plan back around 2000 as the South Pines 4 subdivision. It had construction of twin homes, as you can see here, predominantly along Sandpiper Circle. And then with the South Pines 8th edition, over here that changed into having single-family lots that were developed in this location. So when you take a look at what was proposed or what was approved in 2001 originally, in this area there would have been 30 twin home lots. Today what's being proposed are 25 single-family home lots. So very similar to what's been constructed here with South Pines 8 edition, I think back in 2013. The Planning Commission did review this, recommended approval on a 6-0 vote. During the public hearing, we did have residents speak with concerns about construction traffic and the completion of Sandpiper Circle. I think one of the comments that came up was that the construction traffic when the South Pines 8th development was constructed was utilizing Sandpiper Circle, which was not agreeable to some of the homeowners here. We've asked the developer that when he does complete Sandpiper Circle, which will be the first thing before any of the homes could be completed, that the construction traffic utilize this area of uncompleted Sandpiper Circle to construct that roadway and put in the improvements. So the developer is here tonight if you have any questions for him, and I can stand for any questions as well. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, John. City Council, we have the preliminary and final plat of South Pines 9 before us. What's your wish? Put it that way. What's your wish? Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Vaughn makes a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilmember Liefeld. Okay, that motion is now before the body. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Councilmember Vaughn.
I just want to emphasize what staff's comments on that construction traffic, because I don't want any phone calls either on construction traffic going past their current homes. So if we can make sure that developer follows that part, I would appreciate it. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I will say this is one that I very much support. I think this is much needed housing in the city of Hastings. I'm glad to see this come forward. I know there were some issues in the past. I'm glad they got cleared up so this can move forward. And I appreciate the developer moving this and the staff for getting the work done to approve South Pines tonight. Thank you for all the work. There's a demonstration of good communication. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. All right, council, we'll go to comments from the audience. Are there any comments from the audience this evening? Sir? You're very welcome here. Very glad to have you.
Glad to see
Please
ya.
give us your name and address. We
Matt
appreciate it.
Begich, 718 West 14th Street.
Okay, Matt?
Reason I came down here tonight was tree trimming. I had some trees I needed trimming. I had 3 maples, 2 big silvers, and a little red one. The one in the backyard was dead. That's got cut out, stump ground. And the one in the front yard, it hangs out 3/4 of the way across 14th Street. And when we got like 15, 20-mile-an-hour winds, sticks and branches would fall into the street. And some of the branches were like 5, 6 feet long, big around as a baseball bat. And I was just sitting there thinking, what if one of them falls and a car's coming by and zap right in the windshield or something? So I had the trees trimmed, and the guys are trimming the trees, and I said, hey, can you cut that back to the curb? And he goes, no, we can't do that. I says, why not? The city won't let us do it. It's called topping the trees. And I said, can you take 10 feet back. He says, nope, can't do it. It's topping the trees. City won't allow it. I said, okay, so my question is that a rule? And if it is, could a person get a variance, you know, to get them trees trimmed back from hanging over the road?
Well, the reason why they're out there trimming it is to get them off high enough from the road, so,
All right.
you know, your garbage can be picked up or whatever. Perhaps what we could do is have staff talk to we have a city forester
Okay.
that takes a look at that, and then we have some rules and regulations put out by the Department of Public Works. Melanie, if we can handle that, and
You know, all right, sure.
get your
all
phone
right.
number before you leave, sir, and we'll get an answer for you, and you'll get
Super.
that properly
Hey,
answered.
thanks for all the service all these years, Mayor.
Thank you, Matt, I appreciate that, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the council tonight? Sir, please come up here. Welcome to the meeting, we're very glad to have you here.
Hi, I'm Dan Peter Fesso. I live at 109 Sandpiper. And we were here a couple years ago, but I just want to reiterate tomorrow's MnDOT's meeting. I'm hoping the council gets involved with it to some degree, because with this new development, we now just pumped another 50 cars a day going through or 50 cars twice a day if you're coming and going, so.
The city council met last week in workshop with MnDOT and talked about 316 extensively. What you'll be seeing tomorrow is some of like 4 concepts that they've come up with at this point that it's going to be up for discussion. And I think most of us will probably be there tomorrow, and it'll be their opportunity to lay those out and talk about that more.
How much influence does the city council have on MnDOT?
On a
To a
state
degree.
road?
Well, I just.
Well,
you
we
know,
try to exert as much as we need to protect our citizens.
But they can tell you to go.
You know, it's their highway. But you know, to be sure that they're aware of our comments and how we want to see that developed out there. And we have some options before the city that that we're able to weigh in on. And so the city council's decision will be very heavily considered.
One other comment I just want to make is, anybody that's driven there at night, the narrow part up here, if anybody's walking or riding, it scares the heck out of you.
Yeah.
Because you don't see them till the last minute. I'm afraid somebody's going to get killed there.
Yeah, the proposal that we've seen, sir, you'll see tomorrow night have trails go through there, so people don't have to be on the roadway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and we'll see you there tomorrow. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay, council, announcements. We have announcements. Are there any announcements? Okay, seeing none, council, I have a few announcements. Tomorrow well, here's a segue into it. We have a public open house at the Crossroads Church next to Colburn's on 33rd Street. The project update for the Highway 316 improvement project. MnDOT and the city staff will be available there to answer questions. If you can't make it to the meeting, tell your neighbors, if you can't make it to the meeting, that there will be a virtual open house from August 22nd to September 5th, a virtual online, that shows all the different options. More information is available on the project website, and there's a link to that on the city's website at www.hastingsmin.gov. Okay? Question real quick?
Has the city entered into talks with Martian Township about extending Tuttle?
Has the city had discussions with Marchand Township with what?
Extending Tuttle to 61?
There has not
There
been
was years-
discussions that I'm aware of, no. So, not at this time.
No interest?
I assume you mean move Tuttle all the way to Highway 361?
Yes.
That is a major concern for the city. We'd like to see that extension done when and if that property gets developed. Okay, thank you. So tomorrow is the public open house at the Crossroads Church, and that begins at 5 p.m. That's going to go from 5 to 7. So, and I think right around 5:30 is when they're going to have their discussion points. So if you could be there by 5:30, that would be helpful. Tomorrow at 6:30 on August 21st is the Parks and Recreation Commission. They'll be meeting here in this chamber. And at 7 o'clock, the Heritage Preservation Commission will be meeting as well. On Monday, a week from tonight, August 27th, the Planning Commission will be meeting here in this chamber. City offices will be closed on Monday, September 3rd, in observance of Labor Day. So our next city council meeting, regularly scheduled city council meeting, will be Tuesday, September 10th at 7 p.m. Hard to believe, isn't it? Next time we meet will be after Labor Day. September 4th. Okay, it says 10 here, but you're right, September 4th. That would be, too much later. So September 4th, Tuesday is our next city council meeting at 4 PM. Council, we have no other business before the body. A motion to adjourn is in order. Moved by Councilmember Vaughn, seconded by Councilmember Brox. That is a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails, and we are adjourned.